Hello, good morning, everybody. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Good morning, good morning. Oh, how is everybody today? Hello. I see some very familiar faces from this past weekend. Hello. I hope you're having a great Activate hangover. Welcome. All right. So as we get more and more people joining today, go ahead and you guys can start thinking about and typing into the chat anything you'd like to be coached around. Good morning. I do have new furniture in my office. It's starting to come together, guys. It's still a mess back here, but yes, new furniture. Thanks for noticing. All right, welcome to those of you just joining. All right, yes, keep typing into the chat anything you'd like to be coached around. Anything you'd like to be coached around. Hello. All right, I'll give you guys just a couple more minutes because it's literally only 10:01. So I'll give you a couple more minutes. Type into the chat anything you'd like to be coached on. I love that, David. Good job. All righty. Okay. Hello. Imposter, okay. Perfect. Hello, everybody. All righty. So, okay. Anybody else? Gizmo's at my mom's house, Kirk. I don't have a gizmo. Okay, perfect, Kate. Yeah, we can answer that at the end. Just remind me. All right. So let's go through these. Work hard, not mind being known as identity. So let's go ahead and get we're going to pull up Sandra today. Let me find your name in here. There you are. We're going to go with Sandra today. Hey, Sandra, how are you?
The weekend was amazing.
Good, I'm glad.
And it really gave me hope that it's possible for me to get through this, because the whole thing about needing to make more money and the whole working hard thing has felt really hopeless, like it's not possible. And I can only work so much. And getting that it's like, oh, I just have to clean the filters. And then I like won't have to add more to work more. Yeah, So I'm excited.
Yay. Okay. So, what would be the most important thing to talk about in this coaching session?
The really important thing is the part of me that is afraid to be noticed. So during one of the workshops or something like that, I had I think it might have been like the Thursday call or whatever. I had to talk to my accountant about connecting with CRA, the Canadian version of IRS, and I was just freaking out, like dealing with the government and dealing with money and dealing with business. Really, was just creating this panic. And I wrote a whole bunch in my mind matrix journal about it, because it's like, okay, so if dealing with my business creates this kind of panic, how is it that I'm ever gonna make this work? Crazy.
Well, let's go figure it out.
Yes. And I feel
So,
like I'm really, really young, like, 6 years old.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So what would you like to have at the end of this coaching session?
Body wise, it's like I'd like my body to just feel good, because right now, talking about this, my gut's all stressed out and my breathing is all suppressed and my head's all. So just to feel like calm and happy and excited about talking with people and about serving people. And, there's this, like, what are people going to think? And, this whole thing about not being noticed and all of that's like, it all just like kind of goes away. And I'm just comfortable being myself. That also causes a reaction, just saying that.
So how do you know that you're going to be comfortable being yourself?
The answer that comes up is like, I walk into a room with a bunch of people and I'm just like happy to be there and excited to go up and meet new people, looking forward to it. Just like right now, to go to a networking meeting or something, I have to talk myself into going.
Mhm.
It's like, as opposed to, oh, hey, this is like my favorite thing,
Okay, perfect.
starting conversations and stuff, looking forward to it.
Awesome. All
Like
right.
thinking about, starting a conversation with people from a perspective of, oh, I want to meet this person and see how I can support them in being them,
Mhm.
as opposed to all of these like weird, like fear-based away from motivations
Mhm.
that are behind it now. And I have to like peanut butter my way through that to get myself to start a conversation.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to the bottom of that, shall we?
Yes.
Okay. So, I want to kind of just start off with, if you are noticed, what are you afraid of?
What immediately comes to mind is, if the government notices me, then they're going to shut me down, or they're going to demand that I do all sorts of things, or they're going to take all sorts of things from me. And saying that, what comes to mind is, if my parents notice me and what I'm doing, then I'm going to get in trouble. And I remember being 6 years old and sitting on the floor, keeping track of the number of times I got in trouble. And I remember being 6 years old and promising myself I was never going to speak again. And then feeling like I failed at that, because of course I couldn't stop speaking. I also have this big thing about bothering people. I'm afraid of bothering people. And I consciously have to get over that when it comes to making phone calls and talking with people, this whole thing about bothering people.
So, how's that a problem if you get in trouble because your parents noticed you?
It feels like the end of the world, you know. I feel like if I make a mistake, then it's utter destruction of everything, you know, which of course isn't logical. But, you know, when I ask that inner part of myself, it's like, it's the end of the world. Everything, you know, gets destroyed.
So, what would you take it to mean about yourself if you did make a mistake and destroy everything?
I did it wrong, made a mistake. I don't know, you know, not knowing how, I don't know, is sets off these panic cycles. It's much better than it used to be, but you know, it's like the, you know, the 6-year-old swirling around in circles,
Mhm.
um, and feeling like everything is just destroyed, and it's all my fault.
Yeah.
It's all my fault.
So, what are the qualities and characteristics of somebody who destroys everything?
Well, interesting thing that comes up. It says selfish,
Mhm.
and demanding attention is also selfish, which is interesting. Qualities and characteristics of someone who destroys everything. I blame them. It's all their fault. They think they're important. You don't know what they're doing. Hmm. Something feels better though.
So, if you're selfish, how's that a problem?
My head is just bad, 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 bad.
Yeah. So, how specifically?
Oh, so then I'm going to need my mother's attention. And when I was 3, or 2, I don't know how old, my mother was pregnant with my sister, and she was sick the whole time. And so I had this memory of standing outside the door, wanting my mother, and I couldn't bother her. So I was by myself and had to do things by myself. So feeling like how bad it would be if I bothered her.
So, what would you take it to mean about yourself if you had bothered your mom?
I'm selfish is what comes up again.
Mhm.
And there's something wrong with me. Like already feeling like I should be able to do everything by myself. Which of course, you know, I was only 1. I couldn't do that. But you know, when I was 1, I could already say all the nursery rhymes. So I was already like overperforming, needing to be able to do everything when I was 1 year old.
So, it makes sense that now you don't want to have to keep doing extra work when you don't need to. You've been doing it your whole life. So when you think about being 2 or 3 and your mom is pregnant with your sister and she's just sick and you can't bother her, even though you really, really want your mom and you're having to do things by yourself, what are your negative thoughts and emotions?
Part of me feels like it's my fault that she's sick, which of course, you know, isn't. Um, and part of it is I think that I shouldn't need anything. I shouldn't need her. And so to suppress needs, suppress wants, suppress needing to be heard.
Right? So if you're feeling this selfish and you're not heard or not feeling as wanted, what are your negative emotions?
There aren't any positive ones.
There aren't any what?
There aren't any positive emotions.
Good. Yes, I want the negative ones.
There aren't any positive ones. Um, it's my fault. Shame, anger, but it's not okay to be angry. Failure, sadness, loss. And there's a lot of, not knowing how, how do I do this? How do I fix it?
Yeah. So, how would you describe somebody who doesn't know how? What are they?
Faulty, incapable, failure, unresourceful, lost, lots of lost. And now an answer comes up. It's like, well, you could ask for help. You don't know how, you could ask for help. It's like, oh, what? I don't do that.
Okay. So I'm gonna put a pin in this rabbit hole that we went down, and I'm gonna go back to the beginning
Okay.
because you gave me two different things when your parents notice you versus the government noticing you. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to go down that rabbit hole for a minute. So you said that if the government notices you, they might like shut you down or take things or make you do things you don't want to do. So what are you afraid of if they're noticing you and threatening to either like shut you down or make you do things or take things from you?
I'm afraid they're going to tell me that I'm doing something wrong, that I'm making mistakes, that I'm hurting people. Oh, this is another big thing. I'm always afraid that I'm hurting people. That goes along with bothering people and hurting people. So by asking for help or by asking to be noticed, I'm hurting people, actually. And so there's just this fear of the big authority figure, and that they're going to tell me that I'm making all these mistakes and I'm doing all these things wrong, and that they're going to shut me down, or it's like this makes me go all spinning again.
Mhm. If you hurt people, what do you take that to mean about yourself?
Oh, it's all my fault, and I'm wrong, and I'm faulty, and um, hopeless and impossible for me to ever be good or to do anything right.
What's important about being good or right?
That's also trying to get away from being wrong. It's like the efforts to do things well, efforts to do things right. It's That's also an away from motivation, which I hadn't really thought about that before. But um, it's away from the failure and away from the badness.
What is your definition of wrong?
Not knowing how. It's like I have a image in my mind of being a little kid and not being able to take the blocks and put them in the right place, not being able to do some task. And it just, it's like doing something that just doesn't feel right. I'm really instinctive in how I make decisions, um, gut feelings. And if something doesn't feel right, that also has a wrongness to it, feeling to it.
Okay. So if you're to do something wrong, whether it's not knowing how to do something or wrong in the sense of that you're doing something that doesn't feel right, how's that a problem?
That's when it feels like everything explodes. It's like, it's not just me that explodes, it's like everyone else. And so by making a mistake, I'm also hurting everybody else.
Okay, so if everything explodes, how's that a problem?
then I've messed everything up for everybody.
How is that a problem?
It's hurting other people. It's doing something to them that is not what they wanted. It's how is that a problem?
Yeah,
It's like,
how's that a problem? If you're hurting other people, how's
yeah,
that a problem?
it all gets back to the same thing. It's all my fault. And I mean, thinking about
What if it wasn't
children,
your fault? What would happen if it wasn't your fault?
I don't know.
So it would be wrong for it to not be your fault.
Maybe not.
Okay, so then if it wasn't your fault, if what if everything just exploded because it needed to explode and it had absolutely nothing to do with you? Then what?
I don't know.
So
Then
what is important to you about being the one who takes all the responsibility?
it doesn't feel like I'm taking the responsibility. It feels like I automatically just have the responsibility. So if I don't automatically just have the responsibility, like I don't know how to do that, but I mean, it doesn't feel like I'm going and actually gathering up everything and making it my responsibility. It just feels like it automatically happens that way. So,
According to who?
so when you say that, it's like that's just the way it is.
According to who?
I don't know.
If you did know, who would it be?
God, I guess. Does God decide that kind of thing?
I don't
Or
know.
does
You tell me.
anybody hear me? What?
I don't know. You tell me. Who is determining that it's automatically all your responsibility? And that's just how it is.
Maybe I can decide that I've just chosen to take that responsibility, which means I can choose to not take the responsibility.
Yeah. So then what would happen if you choose to not take all that responsibility?
Well, part of me says I don't know how to do that. But if I could figure out how to do that, that would make things a lot easier.
Yeah. It would make things a lot easier. So what does it look like when you get to choose what responsibility you take for your part in your business, in your money, in the government, in your relationship with your parents and your family, and 6-year-old you? What can be different if you're the one determining and in charge of what you choose to take responsibility for?
So I had this image of a little child myself with this big huge backpack on with all of the things I've taken responsibility for, and my pockets are all stuffed full of all the things that I've taken responsibility for.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I can take the backpack off.
Yeah.
And pull the stuff out of my pockets. And then I can decide what I want to actually be responsible for.
Yeah.
And not have to be responsible for the rest of it.
So what emotion is coming up right now?
And disbelief. But also like, oh, like I could have some happiness.
Yeah.
And have some fun.
Yeah.
And play and not work so hard. I don't have to be responsible for everything and everybody.
You just get to be responsible for you. Just you. Not the whole world. Just you. So at what point in your life, and I'm sure considering some of the other things that have come up, it'll probably be early in your childhood. At what point in your life did you decide you needed to take on all of the responsibility for everything?
So when I was 6 months old, my parents left me for 3 days with an aunt and uncle. I had this memory of lying in the crib, staring at the ceiling and wanting my mother, and I'm crying and she doesn't come. And she was gone for 3 days. And I gave up. I said, she's not coming back, and I had to take care of myself. And when she came back, I didn't know this until she told me. She came back and I pushed her away because I had decided that I had to do it all myself. So have I been making myself responsible for everything and everyone ever since then?
So when you think about that, what are your negative thoughts and emotions?
Blame is coming up.
Yeah. What else?
And guilt. And I'm feeling sorry. It's like I'm feeling, there's this outer part of me that's feeling badly about making myself do those things when I was little. So I'm in both places at the same time.
Yeah.
Which feels kind of weird. But there also starts to be some like there's something else possible. And I don't know how. Really, it can't be any worse than it is now. I don't know how to do it now either.
So when you were just 6 months old and you decided that your mom wasn't coming back for you and you had to do everything all on your own, what did you need that you didn't get?
I needed her to hear me and to come and to pick me up and to let me know that everything was going to be okay. And I cried it, I imagine my aunt probably came, but I don't remember anything about my aunt ever showing up.
Right, because it wasn't who you needed.
Yeah.
So you needed to be heard and held. What else did you need that you didn't get?
Told that I was okay, that I wasn't bad. It was like, there's part of me that's just, okay, so did I make her go away? But that was my fault too. Oh. So, you know what? None of that was true.
So, because you needed to be heard and held and just reassured and told that everything was okay and that you weren't bad, and she probably just had to take a tiny little, like it had nothing to do with you, and you just needed to know that you were still loved and wanted. What qualities and characteristics of yourself did you suppress because you didn't get any of those needs met?
So all of the joy and the fun and the playing and being able to ask for help, being able to receive help.
What else? What else did you suppress?
I suppressed expressing myself. I suppressed I suppressed like running around and like just being energetic. I started suppressing my self-expression.
So when you have your full access to your self-expression, who are you going to be? Like, who is Sandra when she's got all her self-expression ready for the taking?
I might actually be loud.
Ooh, loud. Love it.
And I might, something else that I didn't do is I never made a mess. I might actually like make a mess just because. I had a therapy session once where I'd never stomped in puddles. And, we went and stomped in puddles on purpose. And so it was like, I won't have to be neat.
Yeah, let's be messy. Let's be loud and messy.
Yes. And not have to be, perfect and figure everything out. And
so if you don't have to be perfect and figure everything out, what do you get to be?
Myself.
Okay, so give me the qualities and characteristics when you just get to be yourself. No hold bar, like you're holding nothing back.
Creative and playing and singing, but it doesn't have to sound like anything. I mean, it doesn't have to make sense, just like making noise and running if I want to run, or being quiet if I want to be quiet, and just doing whatever it is I want to do whenever. And not worrying about how it's going to affect other people or what other people are going to think. But that also enables me to be able to notice how other people respond, if other people think, without all of the shoulds and the expectations on it. Because when I have all these shoulds and expectations about me, I have them about everybody else too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to be easier for other people to be with and fun for other people to play with and create. And writing. I really struggle with writing because I'm a perfectionist about it. So I was like, it'll be fun. It'll be playful.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So when you know that you get to listen to yourself, you get to hear yourself and love yourself and want to be yourself, and you have so much joy and fun and play, and you're asking and receiving for help, like you are just out there expressing yourself to its fullest extent. You're running around, you're being energetic, you're loud and messy because who cares? You just get to be you. You're creative and energetic, and you're playing and singing, and it doesn't need to make any sense, but you're just doing it. And you get to have the choice to do what you want when you want. You get to write. You get to just go out there and be you and be connected. So, what are your positive thoughts and emotions when you get to go out there and kick butt like that?
Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, it is. What else?
And I get to just like be noticed and like being noticed. So it's like when little kids are having fun, just performing, just because, just to do it. And like the interaction between other people is fun. So it's like purposely wanting to be noticed as opposed to purposely avoiding being noticed, doing things purposely to be noticed and entertaining and curious and inquisitive. That word wants to come out, inquisitive.
Ooh, that's a word. That's a good word.
And I can be smart, but I also don't have to know everything. So I was like, I can share when I do know something and I don't have to know everything.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So you're hearing yourself, you're listening to yourself, and you love yourself, and you want to be yourself, and you want to be with you when you are all of these things, because you are and have joy and fun and play, and you're asking for and receiving help, and you just have the most beautiful self-expression. You get to run around, you get to be energetic and loud and messy and just be you, and being creative and playful and singing and running and just having the choice to do what you want when you want to do it. You get to write and just being noticed and like it and do it on purpose just because why not? Because interaction and connection is fun, it's rewarding, it's entertaining, and you get to be curious and inquisitive and smart, and you get to just be free. I added that word because I thought it fit.
Yeah. I
So
love
when you
that.
get to have and be and are all of those things, what's different about working hard and making more money and working in your business?
I could work hard because I want to.
Yeah.
And because it's fun.
Yeah.
And I can also do things that feel difficult because it's a challenge
Mm.
or it's because I want like what comes on the other side of it as opposed to do it because I have to. And I get to share. I get to share. Other people get to have fun too. And other people get to have what they want to. And I can help them do that.
Yeah. So do you feel like you have that calmness and happiness and excitement to just talk and serve people?
Yeah. Like I don't have to run it through 6 filters before
Yeah.
I say something.
Yeah. And do you feel comfortable being yourself, and you get to go out there and connect with people, and you're happy and excited and looking forward to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about class this week and we were thinking about, some people process outside.
Uh-huh.
I've always been a process inside
Mm-hmm.
person. I was like, oh, like I might do more processing outside
Ooh, that's fun.
instead of having to get it all perfect inside
Yeah.
before showing anything. It's like, oh, and then if I process outside, then I get more interaction with other people about it and have fun. by doing that too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Look at you externally processing how you're going to externally process. I love it. That was perfect. So, is there anything else we need to talk about in order for you to feel whole and complete today?
no, I don't think so. Thank you.
Yay. Oh, you're so welcome. This was amazing. How do you feel?
I feel lighter
Mm-hmm.
and more free. And I can see that there's like this future of all of this concern coming back, and that I get to play with that.
Yeah.
So it's like I get to observe where I am on the spectrum of this dynamic. I was like, oh, there that is. Okay. So I was like, no, I don't have to pull that back in to being
Yeah.
who I am. That there's more freedom to play with that too.
That's amazing. I'm so excited for you. You're going to be a whole new person by the time part 2 comes around.
Yes.
By the time we get to coaching, I'm going to be like, Sandra, who is that?
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
This was wonderful.
You're
I was
so
really hoping you were going to work with me today because I was really so.
I felt the energy. I was like, my intuition said pick Sandra. I always listen to my intuition when it comes to picking. I know it always works out perfectly. So I do want to open it up for questions for everybody. So you're totally free from everything we talk about because it's all gone and you have choice and you don't have to take on all the responsibility. So you get to be happy. And if somebody has a question for you, or if you have a question for me, you please feel free.
Absolutely.
So comments, questions, observations. You got lots of love in the chat.
Thank you, everybody. I was purposely not watching it because it was going to be distracting, but
Yes.
I saw them all pop in the bottom.
Yes. So comments, questions, observations. Um, this was wonderful. Yes, lots of love.
Thank you, everybody, for all the moral support.
Isn't this great? Isn't this group of people amazing? All right. I know Kate did have a question she wanted to ask towards the end, and I wanted to see if there was anything a bit more relevant to this. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to type in. I know you're probably frantically typing. You're like, wait, don't move on until I can type my question out. Okay.
I can't stop smiling.
Oh, that's not a problem. It's not. I love that. Okay. So when she had that moment and saw it was her choice to choose, how did I lead her to that even more? Great question. So I wanted to get her to see that she was the one making the choice, and that once she was able to then choose to not make that choice anymore, one, I wanted to let her sit in it. I wanted her to like really feel the impact of that, and then I wanted her to see the impact. So when your client has this like brilliant aha moment, like, oh my gosh, like exactly, this is like perfect example of, oh my gosh, I see the other side. I see what is possible. When they have that, you want to strengthen it. You want to build it up. So asking some lateral chunking for all my part 1 people who were there this weekend, some questions where you're getting them to see the impact. You get them to see where else this new change can affect it, right? So it was really great because Sandra was able to see, oh my gosh, I could just like take this backpack off. I could take the rocks out of my sweater, and I can really just be and choose and know that I only have to be responsible for me. And then there was that what you guys will learn in part 2, but what you guys have learned in coaching is that championing, right? So celebrating and championing. So championing is like, yeah, what else? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like my energy was going up. I was helping her kind of feel like bringing that energy up and be like, whoa, like she's like, oh my gosh, I get to just be responsible for me. Yeah, You get to be just responsible for you, nobody else, just you. So bringing up that energy and that championing is a really great way to cement in and anchor that positive emotion in your client. So hopefully that helps answer your question, Leona, because there's lots of different things you want to do when they're kind of like, yes, yay. Okay, I love that. So what is her next step? Her next step is whatever she decides her next step is. So Sandra, what's your next step? What are you going to do from moving on from here? What are you feeling inspired to do?
Being aware of the tendency to catastrophize,
Mm-hmm.
and how that's me taking on responsibility for everything and like making another choice.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing it for a long time and it's going to continue. But it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that's not mine.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. Okay. So let me answer Kate's question and then Samantha, I'll answer your question. So on how to get people out of story. And then David's like, same thing. Like, I feel like things get way too into story and I need to pull them back. So the great thing about coaching is that we need absolutely maybe 1% of content. That's it. 1% of content. All I'm looking for is context. So I want the context of a story, right? I don't necessarily need all the details. Now, sometimes details can help. It's just you only need them to a certain extent. So like taking what Sandra did today, right? She went into story a couple times, which was not a problem, right? There were a couple times I redirected. And sometimes I was like, oh, I want some of these details because it's giving me a sense of what her brain is doing. Now, when your client is too in story and you feel like they've been talking for like 5 minutes and you're like, oh my goodness, we're never going to get through coaching if every time I ask a question, it's a 5-minute story and you can't get a word in, right? So the what you do, what it's called in coaching is you want to interject yourself into the conversation. You're not necessarily interrupting them, but you're waiting for them to take a breath. You're waiting for them to think of the next thing they're going to say. You're waiting for the slightest pause and you're like, oh, and you're going to make it look like you're trying to say something. You'll be like, oh my gosh, yeah. What do you want to say? Right? They're just instinctively going to be like, oh, you're trying to say something. So she's like, blah, 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 blah. Hey, and you want to make some kind of noise. Just kind of get them. It's almost like a little pattern interrupt in a sense because they're in their story. Their story is their pattern. So that's like a very nice way of interjecting yourself into their story. If somebody is so in story and they're not taking a breath and you're like, how have you been talking this long without being able to stop or breathe? And oh my goodness, are you a robot? Do you not need oxygen to blah, 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 blah? And they do not stop. This is when a slightly larger pattern interrupt can come into play. And you might need to just talk over them. You might just need to be like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing story, Kate. So what I'm really interested in, and you keep talking until they stop talking. They might need that. And then if they're like, and if something comes up around you talking over them, right? Kate, how's that a problem that I interrupted you? Right? Or I like to frame coaching sessions, right? Hey, I'm going to at any point in this coaching session, I may interrupt a story if I don't need the details. Because the great thing about what I'm doing is I don't need the details of a story in order to support you. So you might find that if you go into story and I don't need it, I might interrupt you and you frame it. Now, David, if you have a person who says, don't interrupt me, I don't allow that, how's that a problem? How's that going for you? Right? What do you take it to mean about yourself if somebody interrupts you? What are your negative thoughts and emotions? You want to coach them around the behavior that's not serving them. So you'll learn about this for like David and Sandra, like for those of you who are going through Activate right now in part 2, right? In coaching, it is okay to coach them around the behavior that is not serving them or you or the coaching session, right? So if like every time you ask a question about their childhood, they deflect, hey, so I noticed that every time I ask a question about your childhood, you deflect. What are you afraid of if we actually go look into your childhood? Call them out on their behavior. That's why they're here. They are here because they know that you can support them. Your job is not to support them in the way they want to be supported. It's the way that they need to be supported. So if they have a behavior that is not serving them, the coaching session, their goals, hey, I noticed, can I state an observation? Just ask, can I state an observation? Yeah. What? So I notice, and then state your observation. Okay. So there's a couple different things that you can do. So hopefully that helps you, Kate, in kind of just like things that you can do to kind of get into the story. Okay, great. Perfect. Samantha's question, that's a great question. So was this a paradigm shift? And if not, what's the difference? So no, this isn't a paradigm shift. This is like a piece of what you experience in a paradigm shift. So in a full paradigm shift or breakthrough, because you'll hear both of those words used interchangeably, that's a 10-step process. So that's conscious and unconscious work happening, kind of like taking turns happening, so we can create that conscious integration. This was a root cause coaching session. So all of the coaching that you're going to learn in part 2 is root cause coaching. So you're going to learn how to do exactly what I just did, right? Start to finish. You're taking your client from starting at their presenting problem, and you're getting them all the way to the other side. In a paradigm shift, you would take this a step further, and you would get all of those negative thoughts and emotions that they said, all their limiting decisions, which you'll learn what those are, all of those things. And then we're going to take those into the quantum releasing process, which is what you learn in part 3, to release them unconsciously. So this is conscious. It's all getting it all brought up from your unconscious mind. We're kind of just coaching, figuring out how your brain's doing the problem, what is in there that's causing this problem. Then we're going to take that into here. We're going to then release it unconsciously. So that's how your conscious and unconscious mind are both kind of on the same page. So a paradigm shift is way more in depth, way longer, way like more detailed, in the sense of like you're doing different things in a specific order to reach a specific outcome. This is, we're going from a presenting problem to the other side. So this is like part of the paradigm shift process. And then the coaching that you're doing in the paradigm shift process is like a root cause coaching session on steroids. So it's lots of fun, I promise. So you'll learn all of the coaching, right, in your next part. It's like session part, that was the word. And does that, I think there are people who don't. Yes, and it's more that in this, it's called conscious mind coaching. And the questions that we're asking are challenging your conscious mind and allowing your unconscious mind to throw things up. So you'll notice, like, there was times, especially in the beginning of this coaching session, where I wouldn't say anything. Like, she would finish saying a sentence or something, and I would still be writing my notes, and I didn't say anything. I didn't fill the silence. And so then Sandra was like, oh, let me just say something else. And she would like fill the silence. That's an unconscious utterance. That's an unconscious need to fill the silence, which I do on purpose, right? You do that as a coach on purpose because you know that most people are just not comfortable with silence, so they want to fill it. They're going to keep talking. They're going to essentially like dig themselves into a deeper hole, but in the best way possible, because you're able to then take what's coming up for them and then move on to like the unconscious releasing and coach them around it. Now, is this all coming from your unconscious? yes, and were the questions and when you're asking things and what you're going for, it takes somebody to see, exactly, Samantha, it takes somebody to see something that you're not seeing. Like Sandra could have gone down the it's my fault route forever on her own until somebody can point out and be like, girlfriend, why do you keep trying to take all the responsibility for something that isn't yours to take? She'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know I could do that. That's a thing. What? So that's why, so the metaphor we use is you can't see the label from within the jar, which means you're inside your own jar and there's a label and you're like, what am I? What's happening? What is this? What is the jar I'm in? And it takes somebody to look at your jar and say, this is what's happening. And you're like, got it. So yeah, you can coach yourself, but you can only coach yourself to a certain extent before it is insanely more beneficial to have somebody else coach you. Yep, coaches need coaches, right? And it's the same thing. Therapists need therapists, coaches need coaches. It's all the same, right? Because we're all kind of oblivious to our own problems, our own patterns, because we're so used to them. Because we're like, oh yeah, that's just the normal Tuesday. And somebody's like, what? What do you mean that's a normal Tuesday? That's insane. So it's a different dynamic. So I hope that helps you with that question there. Kathleen, I love that. What I learned was the power of the meta questions. Absolutely. Previously, I felt like those questions were snarky and disrespectful, and now you can see that they're not. Perfect. Yes. All I'm doing is taking everything that she's saying and just asking more questions. Now, what you'll discover as you learn coaching and go through coaching, right, is everybody has their own coaching style, right? It took me a while to find mine. I didn't start coaching like this right off the bat, right out of Activate. It took me some practice to get comfortable with the way that I show up, with the way that I ask questions, with like my own body language and my tone and things like that, right? Because there'd be times where I'm like sitting here and I'm like, how's that a problem? Right. And I'm like, I want to know, like, do you see the ridiculousness that you're saying to my face right now? But it's not in a disrespectful way. It's in like a girl, come on. I know you want to get to the other side. So it's how can I be spicy, but with love? How can I call out your BS with love? So it took me a second to kind of find that. And you guys will all find that too as you practice this. If you want to practice this, right? You don't have to be a coach. And if you want to practice these skills, you'll start to get more comfortable in how you approach coaching sessions and things like that. Oh my gosh, Samantha, no, it's not a problem, because guess what? When you figure it out, you then get to go release it. So everything, like, we don't want to suppress. If we suppress, then it just prolongs the problem. It just prolongs the effect that that problem has on you. But if we can bring it into our awareness, if we can be aware and be like, oh, that's ugly, that sucks. And then we can go release it. It's not a problem anymore. It's out of your body. It is not in your brain. So it's okay to ugly cry. I remember my first coaching session, I was just like sobbing snot. It was ugly. When you think of ugly crying, it was ugly. But guess what? You get through it, right? Yes. And it is scary. It's scary. You're like, crap, what have I been pushing down for so long? And just know that there's always another side. There's always a bigger, brighter other side. So knowing that the deeper into the depths of the crap that you go into, the higher of the highs you're going to have of the amazingness that's on the other side. So if you just know that, and then you trust the person that you're with, right? You want to make sure that you have good rapport with your coach, right? Notice how when Sandra came on, I wasn't just like, all right, what do you want to talk about today? I was like, hey, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. Like I got into rapport. I got to connect before we went into the coaching. So you're in good hands, Samantha. We got you. Exactly, Kathleen. You're holding the container of unconditional love and safety for your clients. Okay. All right. Well, that brings us up to just about the end. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much for all your questions, for your love, for your support, for holding this container. Thank you, Sandra, for being amazing. And I am so excited to see all of the fun craziness that you get into these days. And I can't wait to hear more about it. I will see you all next week. If you guys need any support, things like that, bring it to this call, right? Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Sandra. Bye.
Thank
Have a good
you.
day. You're so welcome. Bye, everybody. Have a great day, great week. Mwah. I'll see you all later. Bye. You're so welcome. Bye.